Hi. Hi. Hello, everybody. Hi. Hi again. And we are live again. Hi. So my name is Artem Boytsev. If you're the first time here, I am a spiritual teacher, and I host these broadcasts every week for my students, and everybody's welcome to join them, to participate in them. There's a link in the description of this video, which you can click, and you will go to the StreamYard page where you can actually join meetings live, just like some of the people did here. Or you can post your comments to the YouTube transmission, to the Facebook transmission. So you can post your comments, and they all will be visible here. So I will be able to address them. So we've got just one visitor for now, and a comment from Trevor. Trevor says, hello, Trevor. Hi. So please feel free to, you're welcome to post anything you want here. And Anton has joined us, or a live video. Hi, Anton. How's it going?
Hi.
How have you been? I understand.
I don't know what to say. I mean, good and bad and all, much anxiety and stuff like that. I'm not feeling so quite good. But now I'm here, and I hope I will feel better.
Well, I mean, the key to feeling better is to be honest with you, is really not minding too much when you feel bad.
Yeah.
That's all it is, right? So just
it's been a tough time. But I'm. I have. I wonder about where I am at the path, spiritual path. I'm quite confused about awakening, self-realization, and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I have this experience. I focus much on my inner body, and I feel this kind of spacious, and it's quite nice for my painful body. I guess I have some muscular disease or something, but it's quite nice, and it's hard to tell how it feels like, but it's like looking into emptiness, but it's kind of full at the same time. And it's my whole body is it's kind of inner body is filled with this space.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But my head is kind of dense. It's kind of foggy. It's anxious, and it's much headache.
Okay.
And it feels like I'm stuck. My head is painful, but the spaciousness in my body is kind of more. That kind of space is kind of what to say. I guess nice. Don't bother like that. That's what I'm experience when I lay down and just do some meditation and focus on my body and stuff like that.
Well, that's great. Yes, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, but unfortunately, things like anxieties and oftentimes headaches too. But anxieties, paranoia, all kinds of different emotions, and headaches and migraines. Oftentimes, like with both my case and my wife's. Unfortunately, that's pretty common. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's very common, and the feeling of spaciousness, especially if you lay down and you meditate and you kind of lose awareness of your body, especially if your body's aching, then yes, it can be very nice and a great feeling. But what's even more important in the spiritual practices is to kind of uh, is to allow this feeling of spaciousness and lightness and uh, being carefree in a way, because that is our birthright. We weren't supposed to live this life in constant stress, right? uh, we live as much as we're given, and that's it, right? So we're not supposed to constantly stress about our past, also. So this awakened uh, living is the goal of the spiritual path, is for this presence, for this lightness, for this spaciousness to penetrate your daily experience, not just to only visit you when you're meditating. So if you meditate and you can sort of effortlessly go there and spend time there, that is wonderful, that's beautiful, do it as much as you like, right? But remember the interesting fact that even the reason that you started to have those experiences, and the reason that this spaciousness started visiting you, is your willingness and your ability to stay with the unpresent experience, including with your doubt, with the fogginess, with confusion. You see,
Yeah, I'm gonna a lot
it
of
wasn't expected for you also.
yeah, I'm gonna load going through a lot of anxiety, just not feeling this spaciousness and
Right,
just
exactly.
ah.
Yes, exactly. So the a very significant driving force of any spiritual progress is honesty, is self-honesty, right? So if you are feeling fearful, if you're feeling anxious, if you don't feel any spaciousness, whatever, if you feel a yearning, a desire for the spaciousness to reoccur, right?
Yeah.
It's always different, right? The yearning for the spaciousness to reoccur isn't the spaciousness itself, right?
Yeah.
Of course it's not, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
whatever it is that is going right now, that is going on right now, is for something for you to explore, is for something for you to allow and invite into your experience.
yeah. I
Yes.
try to have this experience when I'm kind of how to say, speak to people and stuff like that, but oftentimes it's not there. It's
No, no,
not
no.
there.
Yeah, you can. That's the key, Anton. Even is that you can't try to have it back. You can't try to have this spaciousness back, because this spaciousness is what visits you when you stop trying. You see, when you stop trying to solve all your problems, when you stop trying to think, oh, well, what does it all mean? When you stop trying to constantly plan and scheme in your mind about how to be, like what the future will be, or revisiting the traumatic past in the mind. You see, so when you constantly stop trying to fix yourself, then it sort of comes. You see.
Yeah, it's probably actually I experience probably every time I just lay down and relaxes in the bed.
It's wonderful. Yes. So every time, so you
But
can very easily relax. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But it's always this simultaneously anxious mind and stuff like that.
Right. Yes. Because yes. So the mind. So you're saying that as the spaciousness comes, dawns on you, right? As you lie
Yeah,
down to meditate, as the spaciousness dawns on you, there's also an anxiety that dawns on you, right? Is that what
very
you're saying?
much, very much.
Beautiful, wonderful. Yes, that's exactly right. So the constantly worrying mind is very anxious to
Yeah.
surrender this spaciousness, to this stillness, because for the mind to surrender to this stillness is to disappear, right? But for this part of
Oh,
you that is constantly is concerned with your situation, is constantly fearful of the future, and is constantly clinging to the past. For this part of you to stop bothering you is for this part of you to go away, right? So that's the fear.
Okay.
You see?
Okay.
So lean into this fear. So just sort of this fear is in a way a kind of a admission ticket to this emptiness, to this calmness, to this peace. You see, because that's what we're afraid of. We're afraid of to let go of the imaginary reins of control, but those are imaginary because those worries and constant obsessions and anxieties, if you notice, they don't affect our lives very much. They affect what we feel, but they don't affect really how the world treats us. Even maybe some people who are very close to us and we manipulate them with our needs, but generally speaking, kind of the drama that is going on in our heads mostly pertains to us and not anybody else. Yeah. So in order to start really enjoying and savoring every moment, in order to really start enjoying your life, you kind of have to let go of this drama. And as you do this, the fear arises, because this drama is in a way a basis of egoic existence. So that is the fear of going away. It's not real, so nothing real can ever go away. But it feels as if it is, and as long as we identify it, the dissolution of this kind of constantly worrying or anxious or discontent character feels very fearful, and it oftentimes feels like you're dying. So that's absolutely normal. So, but that you're right. So you notice that, as you see, it's the same time. You see, because it is scary to kind of let go into this peace and let it sort of consume you. That to really surrender in a way, to let yourself know that everything is going to be all right. You see, to stop worrying about the things that we can't control. So it can be fearful, and that's very good that you notice it. It's very good. So this fear is something to really feel through.
Yeah.
Okay. That's wonderful.
Okay. Yeah, wonderful.
It's still your fear. You got to deal with it whether you want it or not. So better sooner than later. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah. I'm kind of experience. It's not much thought in my head. It's quite empty, but I can feel in a way what thoughts would have been there, and it's pretty crazy up there. Like.
Yeah, because you see, it's just those sensations are just expressions of thought, right? They're just more removed as you sort of meditate, right? So you can have a thought which is completely verbally expressed. You can have a thought which is completely visually expressed, which is what dreaming is, right? So when you dream, you actually have your thoughts visually expressed. Yeah. It's the same thing. Yeah. But if it's less on the level of consciousness, then you may feel your thoughts, just kind of, what you're thinking about, or you can imagine a sort of situation and you can become fearful, but you neither see it nor hear it. It's kind of just sort of intentions and it's totally normal. So just stay with that. Just feel whatever it is that your thoughts make you feel. It's okay that you don't hear them, that you don't see anything. That's totally fine. It's a big part of your practice now.
Okay.
So that's totally normal. So, and at times it may get again like very verbal or very visual. That's okay. But those kind of subtle sensations, those subtle emotions, those moods and tensions, those subtle narratives, just observe them. Just observe them as you meditate. That's all that's needed. There's not much needed. Just to feel these things. That's pretty much it. And you can't avoid it. So you've got an easy.
No, I always get in a situation when I'm back at my home and this is coming up back to me, and
that's totally completely normal.
I actually try to run sometimes. It's just too much, but I'm always back at home. And
yeah. Once you really open this can of worms, you can't really get out of it. I mean, yes, you can. If it's too much, yes, go ahead, take a walk, run, whatever. But sooner or later, yes, you deal with this.
Always back to that.
Always, yes. But it's okay to to distract yourself, to do something nice for the body, take a shower, run, remind yourself that you're alive. That's totally fine. A lot of people do it. It can be too difficult. It's a part of it.
Don't worry about it. Crazy.
Yes, it's crazy. The mind is really crazy. Like to watch its insanity is something. Yes.
I wonder what is this in spiritual term? Is it some kind of before awakening, or is it awakening, or?
Well, it doesn't matter. I would certainly call it after awakening. I mean, that's the process that is the awakening starts. The awakening starts this process of witnessing the craziness of the mind and starts to the process of dissolving the conditioning. And it happens through experience. It happens through emotional experience. It is difficult. It can be scary. Not only fear and anxiety, but all sorts of stuff comes up. Stuff comes up from the past. Usually, the stuff that is pointed towards the past, it's more about sadness, bitterness, offenses, revenge. The stuff pointed towards the future is mostly about anxieties, fears, maybe also revenge, things like that. But it's always pointed either towards the past or towards the future, and it's always emotional, and it's always difficult to let go of, and it's always together with seeing something about yourself which you didn't want to see, or accepting something about yourself or about other people or about the world which you didn't want to accept.
I'm kind of wondering. I really don't think I have got some what to call insights or something about me. It's more like it's.
Well, hold on.
I don't know anything at all. It feels like.
It depends on how you look at it, right? So yes, so you are exactly right. So in the dream state, in the egoic state, like most of the things that we think we know about ourselves are just lies, are just ideas, are just kind of all that we thought that we were, sort of how we should be, how we should behave, what kind of people we were, what kind of people other people are. Like it's all complete bullshit, and it becomes completely unpredictable, right? Like because people aren't really a set of programs, a set of processes. Like people are much more complex. So the way that we suppress all of our exuberance of human expression. Well,
don't know that word.
Variety, like that we suppress all of our variety of human expression, and put us into these roles is extremely cruel. So when you look at the world through the lens of these roles, you see, well, hold on, I don't know anything. All of this was bullshit. Everything that society tells me is bullshit. Everything that people say that makes them happy is bullshit. And that's right. You're right. But at the same time, look at the things that you have started noticing in your experience. Like there's a sort of emptiness in you, which is at the same time deeply calming and spacious and fearful, right? Have you noticed it before? No. So you are start to remove yourself from the social lies, right? But you start to approach what? Your experience, your direct experience of life. You start to get to know yourself better. because to know yourself is also to possess yourself. If you so like knowing yourself isn't predicting yourself. That's very different. You see, what the ego tries to do is it tries to predict yourself. It tries to, okay, I'm like this and I'm never like that. But truly knowing yourself is the opposite, is not trying to predict yourself, but uh, learning to accept more and more in your experience. And as you have been doing this, you have been noticing things that you have never noticed before. That's the process, you see. So you are removing the junk, which is just ideas, just beliefs. Oh, you should be this way. And you start pay attention to what's really going on. How am I really, you see? And through that, you're uncovering more and more of these pains, tensions that are all coming from lies, mostly. And you're sort of unraveling yourself and you're becoming more relaxed and free through this discomfort and pain of really looking, well, what's really going on? So it's much less of some kind of knowledge, which is all borrowed knowledge, all knowledge from other people that are put in your head, and much more of direct knowledge of you knowing yourself more directly. And that is the biggest source of all love, of all the unconditional love to existence, all the unconditional love to life. It stems from your own unconditional love to you.
Okay.
Right. So
wonderful.
yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for this. So I will speak to someone else now. Thank you very much. We have 25 people watching us right now. Thank you guys very much for your support and questions. Please, everyone who's watching, feel free to add comments. I will put Gergo online right now. So we have Maud, who says, "Hi everybody, joined from Nigeria." Oh, hi Nigeria. That's a long way away. So then we have Gergo. Hi Gergo, how's it going?
Hi Artem.
How are
It's
you?
going
Hi.
good, thank you. Had a really nice day here in Hungary.
Wonderful.
I'm not sure if I have a question though.
Okay, no
be with
worries.
you and
No worries. Yeah, just feel free to hang. I will look at some other things that we might have. Okay, I will add you guys to the stream for now.
It was a word I looked up before this conversation, but I forgot to say it. Привет.
Ah, yes. That's hello in Russian. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so feel free to add anything if you want anything to add. Let me see. Alex says, as you begin seeing and acting from your vanity and arrogance, well, you meant to say as you begin to see how you act from vanity and arrogance. So it's not like you begin to act from vanity and arrogance. Ego does act from vanity and arrogance, but it's not like it's something that you begin to do. And you're honest. I mean, in the process of awakening, and you're honest about it being the source of your actions. Is there a point where it's unhelpful on the path to continue taking those actions? Okay, so let me, guys. If you, I'll probably leave you off the screen. But if you want to come back on the screen, you just kind of send a comment or something. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is a good question. In which you're hiding. So you're saying, well, if I begin to see my arrogance and vanity, I mean, should I stop being such a dick? That's what you're asking, basically, right? Is it good for me? Is it it would be spiritual progress for me if I stopped being such a dick now that I see that I'm a dick. Well, no, because you probably aren't seeing that you're a dick yet. Because when you truly see that you're a dick, it doesn't occur to you to ask someone, "Should I stop being a dick?" Because when you truly see how your arrogance and vanity, it's actually quite off-putting. It's actually quite disgusting. It's actually quite ugly. So it doesn't occur to you to ask if you should stop doing this. You actually want to stop doing this because it's difficult to see. But so the other question may arise: you can't. So you kind of, I hate doing this, but I still do it. But if you're asking me if you kind of, if you should still stop doing this, it looks to me personally like you're really enjoying, like you got this new toy for you, which is, oh, I'm going to be super honest now. And that's going to be the source of my vanity and arrogance. And you're going to, like, walk around telling everybody how terrible they are because you're very honest, and you're kind of enjoying it, and you're asking, well, maybe I should stop doing this because you feel that something is off with it. That's what how it reads to me. I mean, maybe. So you say that it has started to disgust me. Okay, well, I'll pretend that I somewhat believe you. And then you say that it is somewhat enjoyable. Yes. Well, yeah, that feels more true to me. So I personally think that, yeah, I mean, I believe you when you say that you see some of it and some of it is disgusting. Uh, so it is, both are okay, you see. So yes, I mean, that's the problem with this behaviors, because they are at the same time utterly disgusting and ugly, but at the same time they're utterly enjoyable for the ego. So there's a big temptation to do that, right? And uh, and so you you kind of, you see, you kind of want to stop doing that, and you want to, for me to kind of tell you to, or like, give you my permission to, which is another issue in itself, right? So if you want to stop doing this, just stop doing this. You don't need my permission. Like, why do you need to frame everything now in kind of how good it is for your progression of the spiritual path? I mean, don't you see that you have kind of also surrendered your autonomy in this way? So that's one thing. And another thing is that you do enjoy it. I'm pretty sure. So that's why it is. That's why I think that spiritual communities can be very helpful, right? So that's why there is a channel, Ego Fight, on my community. If you want to practice your vanity and arrogance, and if you want to look at your spirituality, go ahead and be vain and arrogant to people there. Kind of, they're consensual there, and they'd be more than happy to be vain to you back, or more than happy to be vain from to them, more than happy for you to be vain to them, right? Maybe that's part of their practice. But in general, we tend to be arrogant and vain to those to whom we feel that it's safe to. So I'm pretty sure that the targets that you're choosing right now will kind of be okay with your stupidity. For what reasons, I don't know. Like, maybe maybe you surround yourself with people who kind of are traumatized in a different way that you were, and they are okay with being humiliated by you, or something like that. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is that when you notice it coming up, right? Notice the feelings, notice the enjoyment. If you already starting to doubt whether this behavior is actually serving you, if it's good for you, or if it's just kind of this automatic pattern of behavior which you acquired, then I would invite you to explore this tendency of yours in a kind of in a more consensual setting. So speaking to people who kind of actually, at least on some level, don't mind you being a dick to them, and also paying keen attention to both the anger that arises during that and the enjoyment that you feel, because this enjoyment that you feel from kind of the satisfaction from taking these actions is also ugly. Yeah, you just haven't. I don't think that you have seen it yet, but it is. So I mean, would it be better for your spiritual progression to engage in these actions less, or to limit them to, like, let's say, special places or spiritual communities? No, I don't think so. But it would be better for other people, probably, if you try to be more kind of compassionate and understanding, and to not just do it out of sheer pleasure. So for you, it kind of doesn't matter. You see, it, like, from a perspective of you as someone who will have to feel through all of those things, it kind of doesn't matter from that perspective. From a perspective of you as a living, breathing individual that lives in the real world, then, I mean, usually we sort of vomit our shit on people who least deserve it, and on people who love us most. So just even from the practical perspective, you can say a lot of stupid things and do a lot of stupid deeds by kind of letting yourself really enjoy your newfound cruelty, or not a newfound, but you're rediscovered, let's say, so I don't generally recommend it. I mean, I know that it's unavoidable, but generally it's mostly it's almost never rational. It's cruel, and I generally recommend using spiritual communities for that, meditating. And then if you really want to have a heart-to-heart with someone, then at least do it live, like do it in person. Don't just send someone like nasty texts. That's very easy to send nasty things over text, right? So if you really want to speak to somebody, and you think that you know better, and you're going to teach them a lesson, well, please do it in person. And if you can't do it in person, then, well, maybe you shouldn't do it at all. Because you just want to kick them. That's all you want to do. So yeah, so I'm not sure. It's a good question. I'm not sure to what extent my babbling covers it. But it's a question that commonly arises on the spiritual path, right? So, like, I've noticing that I'm much more cruel, and I can affect people negatively as I start caring less about them. I mean, should I care about people? Well, if you asking this question, then on some level you do care about people. On some level you understand that what you're doing probably isn't right, but you feel very much tempted to. And unfortunately, in the context of a spiritual community, that's actually a good thing. Okay, so let's see what else I have. Okay, Gergo says she has a question. Yes, I will come back to you, Gergo, just in a second. Tai says, does the dark night of the soul usually happen before self-realization or after self-realization? That's a good question. I don't know. I kind of had, like in my case, I kind of had two, you could say, but see, I mean, what people call the dark night of the soul varies greatly depending on the person. So for me, the dark night of the soul, like what I call the dark night of the soul, was my like biggest, baddest depression with lots of suicidal ideation, and that of course that happened before what I call self-realization for sure, because uh, after self-realization, right, even if you uh, scared and depressed and anxious and like all sorts of stuff, but there's still a direction, so you still there's a sense of direction which is inward. So the kind of a quintessential kind of characteristic of the dark night of the soul is that you're completely lost in it, so you don't know where you're going, what's gonna happen. So it's like it's the hardest period because you're completely lost. And even if you read like books about enlightenment, they're not gonna. So in my lingo, it cannot happen after self-realization, but it certainly can happen after awakening. So after self-realization, there's some sort of another dark night of the soul where you can be lying on your bed and crying for years, but it's still there's a will to live at this point. So you understood what's wrong with the humanity and why we are so suffering and why the life is the way it is. But now you have to make your peace with it. You have to make your peace with how you were, with how everyone is, with how the world is. So that is a difficult process, but there is a direction. So before self-realization, it's so what most people call awakening isn't something that I called anything, right? So for example, like you could get to the point in a psychedelic experience where you know beyond any doubt that there's something beyond this reality in which you live, which at this point would be beyond dreaming. So I didn't call this experience as anything, but a lot of people call this experience awakening, and it changes the whole outlook and everything, and they start to be very spiritual and things like that. So can you have like a real dark night of the soul with like a complete, like feeling completely lost and without any direction after this happens? Yes, of course, because a lot of directions that people get after awakening aren't really directions at all. They are kind of very their directions towards God, the divine, sacred geometry, or they interested in crystals right now, or some other things, some energies, some forms of healing and stuff. But they haven't set firmly yet an internal direction towards the experience. You see, and when the internal direction hasn't been set yet, then you can get really lost in the external, because mind you, even the spiritual communities with the all of the rituals and books and teachings and understanding, I mean, the real measure of spiritual progress is your direction in your spiritual search. Is it internal or is it external? Right? Are you looking for someone outside of you, a teacher, words, books, methods, some forms of practice, whatever, to bring you the relief that you're yearning for, or is your direction always towards the experience, towards yourself, towards a greater intimacy and greater acceptance? So if you have set the direction, when you face the difficulty, if the direction is set internally, then that's it. Then you can no longer you can have a very, very difficult years if you have to, like, lots of conditioning coming up, lots of things to make peace with, lots of things to let go of, lots of things to forgive yourself and others, for sure. But that's probably wouldn't be already what people would call a dark night of the soul. Also, some people probably use this term. So kind of, I had many dark nights of the soul, so some would say. So some people probably use this term so kind of widely. I would say that then we could say I had two, or some people had many. But it's just as a sort of a depression, but as a kind of a depression from which there feels like there's no way out. You don't know where you're going. Things are only seem to getting worse and worse, and you sort of start losing something that you don't know what, and it's all very disorienting, and you're kind of losing all of your losing your values in life, and your sorts of signs and goalposts and things like that. Then I think it can only happen before, at least before abiding awareness, right? So maybe after what some people would call awakening, but before abiding awareness sets in. So that's what I think. But I mean, again, right? So those are experiences, and then those are words, labels that we assign to experiences. So who am I to tell somebody that they cannot use the word dark night of the soul to refer to every depression, right? They may have 5 or 6 of them, and then one would be especially bad, or maybe not even that. Maybe some people go through this process without sort of some kind of overarching intensity of despair, and then kind of a large traumatic awakening, which was my experience. It doesn't mean that everybody's experience is the same. Okay, good. Nora asks, hi Nora, do you think one must have experienced enough suffering to be committed to the spiritual path? Ego dissolution is tremendous pain. Yeah, I think so. But you see, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So you cannot, like, our instinct is to recoil from suffering. That's kind of why we suffer. So if you don't have an instinct to recoil from suffering, if you don't have an instinct to run away from suffering, then you don't suffer, basically. So it's the same thing. And so one, strictly speaking, cannot be committed to experiencing enough suffering to dissolve the ego. That would be a lie, basically. So every person who says so, because the part that is committed to it is also the part that will need to let go. You see? So because the part that is committed to it is also like, oh, I will remove all my suffering. like it's also like a statement, against reality. It's also a statement which is in a war, in rejection of reality, rather than in acceptance of reality. Because the first reality is to be accepted, that when you suffer is that you suffer. Not that now you have a commitment to remove your suffering, or a commitment to suffer, you see. So it's not, strictly speaking, possible to have a kind of some sort of a commitment towards something that you recoil from, towards something that you avoid. So what happens is something else. What happens is that you get exhausted from suffering to such a degree that you kind of lose hope. You don't mind suffering. You see, because acceptance of suffering starts with not minding suffering. You see, so you kind of, the mechanism by which you try to avoid suffering all the time needs to fail. at some point. So it needs to like it needs to become just too tiring. It's like, oh my god, fuck it. It's never gonna work. I'm just gonna suffer. That's the first thing that has to happen. You see. So it's not that kind of commitment in the way that ego pictures it, which is, okay, we're going to commit just like we're going to achieve something. You cannot, like, ego cannot achieve its own dissolution, right? It's what happens when you just no longer want to continue to play this game of trying to avoid and not look at your own suffering, at whatever's going on. And why are you this way? You see, when you're no longer willing to postpone it, when you're just too exhausted from it, and it's like, okay, that's happening now. So don't try to make kind of commitment, some sort of commitments, or kind of it is. So if you say so on one hand, it is true that when one is committed on the spiritual path, one is committed to no longer avoid suffering. Yes, that's true. And it's also, but it's like, it's not something that you can decide, right? It's basically the definition, right? So if your direction when suffering comes stays more or less within you, right? So if your knee-jerk reaction isn't to distract yourself, then you are committed on the spiritual path. But it's just a fact, right? It's not something that you talked yourself into it. That's already a characteristic of where you are, in a way, on a spiritual path. But if you're asking also, because I'm looking at your question, and I think it can be read differently, is like, before that happens, does one also must have suffered enough? That's also usually true, yes, because the whole process is about kind of stopping to pedal the wheels of the bicycle. But as you start doing this, right, so all of this sort of suffering, it comes to the surface. So you could even look at it as some sort of a locked bike. So even if you stop pedaling the wheels, but the wheels still pushing your legs, and so and in a way, stopping pedaling the wheels and experiencing those suffering is the same process, right? So it's a process of slowly stopping the bike. And yes, I mean, if you're at the point where you kind of committed to this thing, then usually it means that by that time you have already suffered quite a lot, and you have seen quite a lot of suffering in your consciousness also. So it's very rare that someone like super happy and like, traditionally, kind of conventionally happy and successful person suddenly wakes up and like, oh my god, well, what is he wake up from? So you kind of have to, you're waking up from a dream, and usually it kind of becomes a nightmare before you wake up from a dream. If it's a nice dream, it's difficult to wake up from it. So that's also what the dark night of the soul is about. Is basically just a nightmare that we're having while waking up, before we wake up from a dream, which isn't a night dream, but which is a dream that we keep having during the day. So it becomes a nightmare, and that's what oftentimes is described as the dark night of the soul. Okay, so Nora, I don't know to which extent it addresses it. I hope it does. Tai says, oh, no. Hold on, shish. Just a second. So Deck says topical questions. Topical. Okay. There are people in spiritual circles who are very against vaccines. Yes. Do you see any issue with them, or are we safe to just get whatever is recommended? I don't see any issues with vaccines. I actually see issues with people who are against vaccines because, no, I understand it's their body. No one should be able to make you. That's fine. But at least, I mean, your reasoning have to be sound, right? So most of the anti-vax movements are based on anecdotal evidence and some kind of observation of coincidences. There's pretty much no scientific evidence that vaccines are dangerous, from what I know. We did exterminate very serious diseases, pretty much, remove the virus from the surface of the earth, or bacteria. But with some very serious diseases with vaccines in the 20th century. So I mean, there is reason, right? So there is emotion, and then there's reason. So I don't see any. I mean, the only reason I see is that I don't want to put anything in my body if it doesn't hurt. Well, okay, that's reason enough. But there's also no evidence to suggest that it would be bad for you. And there is quite a lot of evidence to suggest that it would be good for society at large. So yeah, I personally, I'm not against it. I'm that feels quite silly to me. But they're usually very proud of their choice, and they feel that it has something to do with truth. I don't know if it does, to be honest with you. Not at all. So that's what I have to say about that. So Nora says she's following up. She says, I had an awakening experience and the suffering was unbearable. It always is. It felt as though my life was nothing but a figment of my imagination. Yes, actually, and I did not want to solve. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Yes, so the life of the ego is just a figment of your imagination. Yes. So the life that you thought you led before an awakening experience, and the life that you probably is leading now, just based on partially, probably to the large extent, which is probably why you're here, is just a figment of your imagination. Yes. So most of the things that are bothering you in this life has never happened, won't happen. You're probably not seeing them correctly. You're probably misinterpreting the relationships also, and what people want from you or what you want from people. It's a big figment of imagination, and it's based on trauma and pain and fear. That's why you didn't want to dissolve, and that's why it's very difficult to start really seeing things for how they are. That's very uniform, like universal. That's very universal, very common experience. It was the same experience in my case. Pretty much everybody who went through this thing reports the same. So hang in there. That's how it starts for the vast majority of people, from what I know. Okay, Alex follows up. He says, I haven't been doing things like that would be considered harmful. It's more like pointing out to a good friend of mine that she's being untruthful, or poking or seeing the judgments in my mind about people's delusions. Thank you. Well, yeah, I know that you haven't. I didn't mean that you were physically harmful to them. I meant that you were emotionally harmful to them, like pointing out their falsehoods, how you see them, oh, they are untruthful, they're that, they're this. So you poke them because you derive some pleasure from thinking that you are now spiritually superior to them, or you see things better than them. That's not their delusion, that's yours, I'm pretty sure, at this point. So being judgmental about people's delusion is also a delusion. So I'm not even sure to what extent you're being judgmental about people's delusion, or you just see your own delusions in everybody and you're being judgmental about them. So those can be quite tricky to discern, especially when you're dealing with lots of your own arrogance and vanity. I mean, generally speaking, if you feel something, then it's probably your own mirror reflection that you're hating. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, Alex, feel free to just, during this over video, and we can have a live conversation if you feel like it would be productive for you. Okay. Ty says, for the last few days, I felt that there is nothing that can fill my void. Okay. That's generally, voids aren't easy to fill. That's true. That's why they're voids. So even though people say that nothing can make a person permanently happy, okay, I often have difficulty believing that this is true. This isn't true. The void can make people personally happy, permanently happy, even though it cannot be filled. Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean by permanent happiness, but okay, it doesn't matter. But I feel as if circumstance is empty and cannot fill me. That's right. Yes. So the happiness that is based on the circumstance is circumstantial. It's not true happiness. The true happiness is just based on your existence. I often have difficulty believing. Oh, sorry. I feel rather depressed, but I love myself more than I usually do. Wonderful. Yes. So those feeling, depression, those feelings that come to you when you say I feel depressed, explore them also and feel them. I mean, depression is not a feeling. So when you say you're depressed, maybe you feel sad, maybe you feel angry, maybe you feel hopeless. Well, that's also not a feeling. But maybe there's some despair or whatever it is. But explore those feelings, and even if it's just a mood, right? Not a feeling, but a mood throughout the day, right? So this mood also is something to feel. It can also be seen to be very beautiful once you don't try to avoid it. Yes. I feel lonely, right? So yeah, loneliness certainly is a feeling, because I feel so separated from everyone. Whether I am with people or not, it is difficult to accept the temporary nature of everything. Yes, it's difficult. It is difficult to accept the temporary nature. It's difficult to accept aloneness. It's difficult to accept it. But those feelings of loneliness is the difficulty themselves, you see. So there's a tremendous beauty in the fact that each of us is alone. And yet we are still together, you see. There's a beauty, and that is also what connects us, you see. So there's a feeling of disconnection, there's a feeling of loneliness, which is, yes, there's some truth to that. Yes, you can say that these feelings can be substantiated with some truth, and for sure, but don't cling to this truth because it's not complete truth. See, because yes, every one of us is alone, but we're together in it. You see, so this also is the source of love, compassion, and understanding to each other, right? So it's not the complete truth. What's much more important is the feelings of loneliness, the feelings of disconnection from everybody, the feelings that the realization of temporary nature of everything and that life is fleeting, it brings in you. You see, because those are the feelings, as you work through them, as you allow themselves, as you allow them in yourself, those are the feelings that will make you ultimately, as you absorb them and as you integrate this, they will make you ultimately connected to everybody, because it's true for everybody, not just for you. right? So it's difficult for you to accept all these things, sure, but they're nevertheless true for everybody. So they would be true for you 10, 15 years ago, when you didn't even begin to accept those things, or think about those things. It would be true for some other people who are very deeply in denial, and they would still be true for them, right? So, and then the measure of your disconnection is basically just the measure of how your judgment towards what they do converted into compassion to them, uh, because they do what they do, also because they are hurt and disconnected, just like you were. So 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 it is true, but it's also a side of the story, right? It's everything is impermanent. It's true, yes, but look how beautiful it is. That's exactly what makes it beautiful, right? It's because if everything is always and forever, like, what would be the beauty? What would be the fun of that, right? So that's every that's another part of it, right? So truth is always like very complex. It never has only one part to it, right? There's also is another part to it. And what we tend to do is when we feel something, we feel that this part of truth is the only part, right? But by simply feeling it through, by allowing us this experience and seeing that it doesn't actually kill us, that it allows us to open up deeper, then we start seeing other parts too. You see, so don't worry about those feelings of loneliness. Are beautiful and normal, so, as Osho said, suffer the pain of your aloneness. That's what it is. Unfortunately, it's a part of it. uh, but don't think that how you feel right now is how you're always going to be feeling, right? Or don't think that it's the whole part of the truth. No, no. So so and then he says, I don't know what to ask about this experience. I'm not sure if I have any questions. Well, you didn't have any. I still answered the yeah, that's what I tend to do. I haven't even read this part and I just started answering. Okay. Okay. Adam says, two good films that you've rewatched recently. Oh, huh. It's been a long time since I watched what I consider would be a good movie. Yeah, I can't quite remember, actually. Yeah, just can't answer this question. It's been a while. I mean, if you take recently into like a few years, I like the Brave New World adaptation. Uh, yeah, I like I like C. That's the Apple Plus, I think. The TV series. Yeah, it's difficult for me to answer this question. Okay, Gergo, I'm gonna put you back, uh, and because you said that you had a question. Uh, oh, you also so you might be confusing because you're sending me private chat, private comments, so nobody can see this by but guests, I think. So you can actually send comments to like YouTube or Facebook so that everybody can see this. Okay, here we go. Yes, you said that you had some other topic of discussion or something.
Yeah, because it came up. It's about spiritual ego.
Yeah.
So like there's like the one aspect that most people mention, like you elevating yourself above people and like having this spiritual identity and all that. And like you say, on the path there's like ego going all along until you don't see it or something like that. You mentioned it, right? So it's always it's with you, like ego, you're carrying it all the way through the path in different forms. Am I right?
Yes, and I
Like,
mean, hopefully it becomes less clingy, and it kind of it changes topics to which it clings to, and it becomes
yeah,
less and less strong. But yeah, you
yeah.
observe it. Yes, yes.
So after awakening, uh, there is something that they call spiritual bypassing, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm noticing something in my experience, which is like I tend to avoid pain by thinking that I already know this pain, because I've seen it before, and like and there's like the story. I know the story about it, but it still just comes back, and it's like this part of me that doesn't allow to be absorbed in it totally, just because it's like I know this already, like uh, I have seen this, I know what this is, and it's like this subtle. mm, Subtle sense that it's not that bad. So I sometimes I recognize like, oh, I've been doing this, and I wasn't seeing this totally just because uh, just because I think I know what this is, but it's never, am I making sense to you?
Somewhat.
Okay. I know it's messy.
It's all right.
I maybe I don't know what more to say. So
Okay. Yes.
n- no, that's all. Yeah, that's all.
Okay. So there's you see there might be I heard what I think might be somewhat of a misconception when you think of self knowledge or like self. It's not like, okay, I know the taste of this and I know the taste of that and I know the taste of this.
Yeah.
So because then you can use it exactly as a mechanism to actually avoid it, right? So, oh, why? So okay, so it feels like, I'm angry right now, but like, why would? Oh, I know how angry feels. Yeah, I don't want to be angry, and then let's try to suppress it, right? So
Hmm.
that's actually not what it means. So anger, like hatred, fear, and stuff, those are not the feelings that are to be kind of tasted and then to say, okay, I have tasted all of myself.
Hmm.
No, those are tools, those are experiences, those are sensations, those are just what you feel when there's a tension in your body, in your mind, in your experience. So those are indicators of the tension of your argument with whatever's going on with reality, right? So the important part of self knowledge is that by not avoiding this tension, by leaning into this tension and allowing yourself to actually experience it and exploring it,
Yeah.
you ultimately see the delusion that lied beyond this tension, the falsehoods, the falseness. Like, for example, that you always ought to be a certain way, and that triggered you. Like if you're a girl, like, I don't know, that you always have to be beautiful, and then if you get out of the house without your makeup, you start, becoming anxious and stuff like that. So once you release this, I always need to be beautiful idea, then you stop feeling anxious every time that you go. You see? And we
Hmm.
have a lot of those ideas, including like the most fundamental one, which is like, I need something to be happy, right?
Hmm.
Or like, even, if I died tomorrow, my life would be incomplete. You see, it goes very, very deep. Uh, so, uh, so don't think of it as a sort of. Uh, so you explore the difficulty for as long as it's there, not just like, okay, so I know how
Yeah.
this feels. Like, no, it's like, well, why is it still there then? You explore it and stay with it for as long as it's there until it resolves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because everything that we run away from, that we want to reject in our experiences, we want to say, no, no, okay, well, you know what, it's not it, that's not, I don't want that right now, right? It's something that we also never resolve.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so the difference is that you may not need to bring others to resolve it. You may not, the temptation may be to hurt others, to resolve it, to harm others. That's a different question. But whether, you saying, oh no, I don't need it, or you're saying, okay, I'm gonna look there, right? It's only by allowing you can resolve something, never by suppressing, never by rejection. So I don't know, does it answer your question?
Yes, I think so. I think so.
Okay,
Also,
good.
you understood what I meant, so thank you. Um,
Y-
I I also noticed that when I meditate, it's quite pleasant now. So let's say
Mhm.
if I do an hour,
Mhm.
it's like I'm witnessing the mind, and it's like you could say it's smooth,
Mhm.
but but I know there is more.
Well,
So
there will be
uh,
more, yes. So there, yes, give it
yeah.
time. There
So
are dreams, yes.
mm, so like I've seen you write, like of course psychedelics. A lot of people tell about psychedelics and meditation. What was it? I don't even know. Like it's obvious I cannot do much about to see more. So it's like to do anything internally would be like out of the question, right? So what do?
Yeah, there's it's not like uh so don't try to actively figure something out. So basically, even, but it will also happen, right? So like, even if you observe the mind striving to figure something out, that's fine, just
Mm,
allow it. You see, allow it
mm,
to happen.
yeah.
But don't try to do it as a sort of a solution. The solution is always allowing, just witnessing. So if you feel like you want to like get to miss, maybe that's sometimes that's what the mind needs. It was to look at it from all the perspective, and then suddenly he gives up. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna do this
Yeah.
anymore.
I
You see.
had that a few times. Yeah.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
that's sometimes it happens, and that's fine. You see, so all you can do, because meditation is just resting, so all you can do is if you want, if you feel drawn to kind of to more of those experiences in meditation, and more of the effects in meditation, so you feel like there's more seeing that you want to happen, just try and meditate for longer. Meditate for 3 hours instead of an hour. You
Did
see.
you do that?
Yes. Yeah,
Mm,
I mean, at the beginning, like in the first year, I pretty much never like meditated for. I always meditated for like at least an hour and a half, 2 hours. Sometimes I
mhm.
would take acid and like maybe half of it or something, and meditate for like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, I've
So
done that. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I certainly. Yeah, and then I was also, there was always, there was a period of time when I was very sleepy. So I was sort of drawn to continue resting, to continue witnessing
Yeah.
until the mind had such a low kind of pull on me
Trust.
that
Okay.
I didn't feel much difference between just like meditating and just going about my daily life, right? Uh,
Mm,
but generally speaking, it's normal to want to get triggered, to want to get more of the kind of unconscious material to pull up, to want to become more free, to want to sort of increase this kind of lightness, spaciousness.
Yeah.
It's normal, yes. So it's just that it's important not to create it a goal of the practice, an emotional, psychological goal of the practice, because the practice is exactly the opposite. The opposite. The practice is, well, let's stop doing everything and let's just see what comes up, right? So, but that's the kind of a more of a passive practice, and that's also what happens with psychedelics. So that's why I advise to combine meditation and psychedelics, at least until meditation is an effective form of practice for you. So meditate for longer, but then there's also active forms of practice like speaking, speaking to other people, expressing yourself, speaking to people you find difficult to speak to, and things like that. So yeah, it's normal, and my advice would be just to meditate for longer, if you want. So that's up to you also.
Yeah, thank you.
It's up to you what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yes, you bet. Okay, let's see what else. So Belly says, how can one work on resistance? I have noticed ego resisting and procrastinating when it comes to meditation being present. I think, well, it's difficult to procrastinate on meditation, because meditation is the ultimate procrastination. It's like, how about I do nothing and see what happens? So I think that you're confusing here resistance to practice, resistance to action, and resistance to experience. Because you see, ego isn't resistance to practice. Actually, resistance to action is, I mean, the question is, ego is usually what tells you that you should do something, that you should do, like for example, that you should practice, you must practice, you should practice. Why? So that we feel better, but isn't that kind of the story of our lives? Like, we're telling ourselves that we should do so many things so that we feel better, right? So ego is actually resistance to experience. So a much deeper question isn't like, why aren't you listening when we say, like, we should practice and you aren't listening? The question is, what is a kind of, not like, oh, you're procrastinating, right? It's because you're good for nothing, like, but a deeper question is, in a non-judgmental way, you can answer that, right? Which is, well, this probably meditation is somewhat uncomfortable for you. It's somewhat difficult, right? And then the question becomes, why? Well, why is it difficult for you to just do nothing and be with yourself? Now, there's probably some difficult experience. Now that's resistance. Now you don't want to experience whatever it is, boredomness, restlessness, you feel like you should get up, and you like mind racing, whatever it is, but you don't want to go through it, right? So that is resistance, your unwillingness to experience yourself without distractions. That is resistance. So ego wants to turn this around and say, and kind of to create some sort of a lifestyle where you meditate all the time, and then you punish yourself if you don't meditate, and you give yourself good grades if you meditate, and things like that. And it completely misses the point, right? The point is not that. The point is, well, why don't I don't do anything and it's uncomfortable? That's the point, right? So it's always deeper, right? Ego wants to kind of make it a for show. Oh, we have a schedule. Well, we have a meditation schedule. That means we're serious about it. So the only way to, so you don't work on that. You work on resistance to experience. So the only way to do it is that when something unpleasant happens, to sort of remember, to recall, and pay attention to how it feels. And the same in meditation. It's a practice. So you learn to pay attention, right? So pay attention to the breath, pay attention to an emotion that comes up, even as the mind, even if you even if you don't do any techniques in meditation, even if you don't watch your breath or do anything like that, if you meditate for without any techniques at all, if you just meditate for 30 minutes every day, or for 45 or for an hour every day without any techniques at all, and even if your mind is racing all the time, that would still, I think, be a significant improvement in your ability to stay with unpleasant experience. So and that opens up the doors to the spiritual progression. That opens up the doors to many spiritual events and practices and things like that. So kind of don't ask yourself, how can I make myself do something? That's the wrong question. Like, ask yourself, why is it painful or difficult for me to do something that shouldn't be at all, right? So don't challenge or dare yourself, but rather inquire, about your difficulties. Okay, so Alex says, yes, it has been very tricky, and I've seen that as well, that they could be my delusions as well. Yes. Or they can be, or they only my delusion kind of pointed out to me the other way. I feel very disturbed by it. Well, if you feel very disturbed by it, it probably was true. And went into panic. That's great. And it felt like I was tripping. That's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. It looks like my closet doors were breathing. Sorry. Yeah. That oftentimes happens when you get very fearful and scared about admitting something about yourself. Yes, that oftentimes happens. That's totally fine. Dex says, what did Judd McKenna mean when he wrote in the first book, I Can Destroy the Universe with a Thought? I have no idea what he means. What he meant. I think that he maybe meant the dream universe, the kind of the dream world, which could be destroyed with the thoughts. The dream world that ego occupies. So probably that's what he meant. So the same thing that what people say. Everything is fake, like it's dreaming, nothing exists. So it's the same thing. It's the dream stuff, probably. Nora says, do you think there's a way to resolve the mind-body problem? How can consciousness be explained? And do you think the mind can see truth, understand the nature of reality? Well, who would you explain consciousness to? So to the mind, to you? I mean, in order to be able to explain consciousness, you have to be conscious. So it's sort of, you can't explain what is a part of the explanation. It doesn't make much sense. Like, you can point to it, but you cannot explain it, right? So in order to explain something, the system that understands it must be more complex than the system that is being explained. So and then the other question, can the mind see truth, understand the nature of reality? Well, it depends on what you mean by the mind, right? If the mind is all the dream stuff, then of course no. And then if this is how you frame the question, that the mind doesn't exist, the mind doesn't exist at all, right? At all. So of course, I mean, nothing that doesn't exist can see truth or understand the nature of reality. But if by the mind you mean our brain, if by the mind you mean our senses, our our sight, our everything that we experience. I mean, the sum total of all of our experience. Then it is the nature of reality. And I think, yes, we can understand truth to the extent that it's possible to understand truth. So yes, I mean, yeah, I think as it comes with all questions like this, the moment that you start to really dig down and to really drill down to this question and to really look at the terms that you're using and what they mean, kind of as soon as you start to define them, then the question starts to answer itself. Oftentimes, so most of the time, so it's usually only feels mysterious for as long as you willingly don't want to think about what you mean by certain words. And then it becomes like very mysterious. Ooh, so mysterious. And then there's some experience that you want to go through that in order to help you sort of yank yourself out of this mysteriousness. But it's a part of like it's a part of the structure of the dream to really like engaging with those kind of philosophical explorations. So as you do that, my advice would be to also look at what does it give you, like as you think about those things, as you like are you having sort of some sudden awakening experiences where as Alex said, the doors of the closet appear to be breathing, and as you kind of look at your mind's tendency to wrap itself in a pretzel again, and it's like, oh my god, look at this. This is an unanswerable question. Let us look again at this unanswerable question from all the sides. So if you're having kind of those things, or it may serve as a distraction from deeper spiritual work, actually. So even as we explore these philosophical topics, still the focus must be on your experience. So that would be my advice with this kind of lines of reasoning. But you continue. So the further I question the nature of reality, the less coherent everything seems. Yes, I mean, that's right. Because if your current reality is dreaming, then nothing is coherent in dreaming. It's like nothing, like none of it makes sense at all. Kind of, even the character of the dream doesn't exist. Nothing exists in the dream. So, sure, there are some scientific models to explain aspects of reality, but considering the fact that the reality does not behave according to the rules patterns, which is how the mind usually interprets reality, it seems like there might never be a way to understand ultimate reality. Okay, so you said very rightly that the scientific models explain aspects of reality. Yes, so again, I mean, scientific models are themselves a part of reality, so no model can explain its host. So no model can explain reality. So that means that science is not reality. Science are always modeling reality. So they're always modeling aspects of reality. And then you say, but the reality doesn't behave according to rules, patterns. Actually, it does. Otherwise, science wouldn't work. So those kind of rules and patterns as aspects of reality, we can explain and predict pretty well. That's why science works. So every time you let go of an apple, it falls to the ground. I can predict it pretty well. If you show me something else, then maybe, I would love to meet you. Well, maybe I'll first take you to Penn and Teller, to make sure that you're not tricking me. But generally speaking, it's extremely difficult to trick professional magicians because they know all the tricks. So yes, I mean, of course, reality, but dreaming, there are no patterns there at all. Like there's just like what you think of other people is completely subjective. It depends entirely on your interpretation of what happened to you, of what is right and what is wrong, what is virtue and what is sin, and what makes somebody evil and what makes you good. It's usually always like that, not the other way around. So it's always about, some grudges that you're holding into, some ideas that the world will be a better place if somebody didn't exist, or if somebody suffered, or if you didn't exist, or if you suffered, and things like that. So there is no sense at all, right? There's, in a lot of those things, there's no sense, no meaning at all. It only appears to be meaningful on the surface. But as long as soon as you try to actually look at it, you're like, what? Like all of those just meaningless barrage of statements to explain the pain that I'm feeling. That's what it usually is. And yes, I mean, so actually, reality is very simple for us to observe patterns in reality. That's actually what intelligence is. Intelligence. That's what intelligence is. Simply your ability to observe patterns. But it's very difficult to observe patterns in people also, because people aren't people are like in the dream state. People aren't actually very intelligent, because they are moved partially by their intelligence and partially by the suffering, and the part that is moved by the suffering isn't intelligent at all. It's irrational, it's difficult to predict, and it's hurting. So 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 to understand yourself and to understand other people, you just need to feel this pain through. You just need to look, observe, witness, understand, accept the irrationality and the lack of intelligence in how people operate in our day-to-day operations, because a lot of those operations are explained by pain more than by anything else, and it's very difficult, sometimes even impossible, to explain it by any kind of rationality. So that becomes very clear in what I consider authentic enlightenment. So nothing can understand the ultimate reality, because the ultimate, what is the ultimate reality? I mean, you are, as a human being, as a part of the reality. So how are you going to understand all of reality if you're a part of it, right? But being the ultimate reality, which you are, because you're part of it, is very different from understanding it, right? Understanding it is what? Like giving models, analyzing it. Well, if the models are sufficiently complex so that they follow the ultimate reality, then they gotta become indistinguishable from the reality itself. That's why they're models, so that they're very simple, right? So that we can understand it in our kind of limited brain, which we mostly have for survival, for dealing with our environment and things like that. So of course, if we start applying it to science, to some very complicated things, then we will find a lot of very counterintuitive things there. Just like you look at science, very counterintuitive in a lot of ways, especially physics, especially fundamental physics. Yes. So the reality, the absolute, reality itself is infinite, is infinitely complex, and science, points us to this fact again and again. But the reality of our dreaming is actually not that much. So dreaming is actually finite. We create it. We create all of our lies and different ideas about what we know and what will happen to us and why things are happening to us. We believe in it. We spend a lot of time in it. We make it our reality, and that reality can be destroyed. That's what Jed McKenna meant. I can destroy the universe with a thought. So that universe is made with a thought and is destroyed with a thought. But I let go of an apple, it's still gonna fall to the ground. So even though if I'm in a state of consciousness where I say, I don't know what this is, I don't know what this is, I only call it the ground for convenience, I only call it an apple for convenience. Like even if I'm in this sort of, oh my God, I'm super awake now, I'm still gonna let it go, it's still gonna fall to the ground. So actually, the reality in which we find ourselves is quite simple, but we complicate it tremendously by trying to build some worldviews and models and including philosophical and theological models to explain our suffering. But it mostly asks to be felt rather than explained. And then the explanation, to the extent that it resonates with someone, won't even be important to you. It will be important only to the extent that it resonates with other people, if they're going through a similar thing, and you're sort of guiding them. But not much more than that. So okay, so she adds, yeah, exactly. I guess this clears the question. Okay, that's good. I did not mean to say that patterns did not mean to deny that patterns exist, but they are, as you said, not reality itself, but models of reality. Yes. 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 That is true. Yes. Although again, the distinction that I'd like to make is the pattern between, if I let go of an apple, it's going to fall to the ground, and whenever someone calls me or mentions like some topic that I find very sensitive, that I became so pattern of reality, which you probably cannot change, not probably, but for sure. So, and then the pattern of your behavior, which comes from probably some inner tensions that you can explore. You see, and in their exploration and acceptance, we slowly change our patterns, that the ones that don't serve us, right? So that's why it's a kind of it's a process of transformation. It's so the apple becomes an apple, but you change. So yes, definitely, I would make this distinction between the patterns that you observe in your experience, and the patterns which you observe, in the outside world, so to say. So I would make this distinction. But generally speaking, yes, you're right. Yes, the patterns aren't reality. Yes, the patterns are just models of reality. You're exactly right. Yes, if it as it applies to science, you're exactly right. Yes, and I actually think that serious scientists understand that. Serious scientists understand that science is an endless pursuit. Is that it's always, and it's built on top of that. It always try to replace earlier falsehoods with better, deeper, more truthful, more accurate models of the world. Yes. Okay. All right. So it's been almost an hour and 40 minutes. I think it was time to wrap up. Thank you guys for wonderful questions. It was great. Thank you, Anton and Gergo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Artem. It was great.
Thank you.
Showing up over video. It's always wonderful when that happens. So I invite more guests to show up over video, and I invite people to visit my website, www.true-freedom.net. It hasn't been updated for some time, but I plan to. I will keep keeping this videos happen for as long as we have good audience and good attendance. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
To you. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye. You have a good one. Bye, guys.